So, I know we're obviously the last thing, and this is already going over, so we're going to try to make this speedy. We're here to talk about ApplyCycle, which is a system that we built starting in 2010 for, we'll do an introduction, but it's a platform, a Drupal distribution, soon to be released as an open source distribution that's used for managing cycles of applications, in this case for grants, so people applying for grants for funding. It could also be used for things like fellowships, if you have fellowships at schools, or for any kind of ongoing, reoccurring application. So just to do a quick introduction of who we are, I'm Urevick-Ackelsberg, I'm the CEO of ZipTech. We've been working together on this since 2010. Pass it over to Caitlin.
I'm Caitlin Murphy. I am the head of grant making services, and I manage different. This is my colleague.
Hi, Corey Brackett. I'm a program associate. That headshot is from 12 years ago. I wish I looked more like that now. It's tragic.
Look great.
Oh, thank you. There you go.
Just to go into a quick brief agenda, we're going to do a couple of intros of who of not just who we are, but of the organizations that we're working with. Why Copeland, which is the original of the foundations, chose Drupal at first, how the system has evolved, and we're just going to go run through a couple of the features from the position of sort of like the jobs that they have to do for managing the foundation. Intro to organizations, I think we'll start with the Alter and Kendrick and Brown because they are the ones that are managing it.
Sure. So Alter, Kendrick and Barron is intellectual property and copyright law firm. But in addition to those practices, they have foundation management services, and so my boss has board seats on these different foundations and provides the services of sort of like grant administration and management, and that's how these different foundations come into play.
Yep. And ZipTech, obviously, we're a long-time Drupal development organization. The three foundations that are run on this, just to go through them, Copeland is the primary, was the first one, and it's a music, all three of these are related to music. Do you want to say a little bit about just the fund?
Sure. So all three different foundations are organizations that support sort of like the appreciation and performance of contemporary concert music. For the Copeland Fund, it supports contemporary American classical music and jazz. The Amphion Foundation also supports contemporary music, and the Ditson Fund is kind of focused on emerging composers, so composers kind of in the earlier part of their career. Do you want to add anything about?
You got it.
Going as quick as we can. Just.
Yeah.
So this is going to be very abbreviated because we got sort of the short end of the stick here at the end of the day. The other sessions had to blend into our space. So just to go real fast, why Drupal? I'm going to kind of skip through this one because you know why Drupal. If you can imagine, this is one organization that's really managing the operations and application structures for a whole lot of organizations. Some of the stuff that they needed in particular had to do with music, so being able to review scores at the same time that they were looking at sheet music, or review the music at the same time they were looking at scores. The ability to have very different structures for how they actually do the review processes, whether it's panels or not, or other things. And now we're just going to go straight into the features. Oops, I didn't even go into the history, but just to give you one example as we're looking through the features. So we started working way back in Drupal, with Drupal 6. It's gone through different sorts of rebuilds and reimaginations. The current one, which is the one that you can look at the demo of, and you'll be able to use the software for, added a whole bunch of new features that you're going to see, including multiple organizations per user. Previously, it was just one-to-one user to organization. Having panel groups, so a panel in their case is an expert panel, not a panel as Drupal panels, for those who know what that is. Pre-registration forms, application winner follow-up forms, and also allows for better formatting, better import and export, fiscal sponsors, payments, and email templates. Just to go through quickly some of the features, I'm going to hand it back over to Caitlin, and she'll just talk to you a little bit about some of these different things.
Yeah, so from a user perspective, we have many different types of users, administrative users like us, staff people who can go through applications and sort of like manipulate different data. We have board of director users, so each of these foundations have unique boards of directors, and kind of the nice thing in having, the Drupal software is we can sort of customize based on the board's needs for each different sort of like, platform, Amphion, Copeland, whatever. And panelists, Alex mentioned, we have peer review panelists that change based on the grant cycle or year, so we can customize that. And then from an applicant perspective, applicants are the ones who are seeking the grant funds, and that's how they log in to complete their application and can apply to different grant programs, or depending on the different grant cycle, they could apply for only one application, or depending on the rules, apply for multiple applications if they're hoping to get multiple grants. That's what I was just saying. So some operate with one deadline. Sometimes we have a kind of like letter of intent style, like preliminary review, and then they get invited to the main deadline if they advance to the next level. And all of these different things with ZipTech allow us to customize that and meet the needs of the field. So we can have one cycle, get data, and say what, we're changing this for next year to be able to meet the needs of the performing arts field for whatever grant type thing we're doing.
So this is just sort of like more of like, typical for Drupal, but outside of it, for other grant management systems, don't have the same ability, but the ability to have different forms for each type of application that they're doing. So certain ones, in the past, when they first started, one of the big things was just even having MP3s was not possible at that point for other grant management systems. I don't even know if it is today, but for sure, having the ability to have like your custom Drupal forms that have multiple steps, that have conditional fields, that have rich media, and then allowing them to, on the other end, have different ways of displaying that information, whether you're an applicant, whether you're a grant board member, and then also, from the Drupal side, having the ability to create PDFs that have all the applications in it, creating CSVs that have all that information. So the display of the applications, which again is a very Drupal-y thing that it does well, and you've mostly all experienced that. One of the things we just did create is an application CSV importer and exporter. So they can create any view that they have of a bunch of applications, export that, make changes. So as they do their reviews, they generally do it in CSV file, because they'll be reviewing maybe 180 or something, 100 different ones, and they're going through and adding who they want the panelists to be, who they want how much the award amount is going to be, and then that can be imported again. You want to talk about the reviews?
Sure. So something that's really kind of meaningful in working with ZipTech and using Drupal software is that as more time progresses on the software, the richer kind of the data is over time. You look at, let's say, a particular applicant, and when you click in, you can see all of their applications going back to 2010, and in kind of the panel process for different panelists, they can record comments, and this helps us, at this point we give feedback to applicants so we can easily find and track that data, and also, for different foundations and panel processes, we want to record the score. It helps us kind of have an expedited panel process to be able to have all of that data there instead of having to kind of create that type of stuff on our own. So it's really kind of like a one-stop shop for all of the grant management purposes.
Corey, anything else you want to add to the panel area?
No.
Okay. And it just where it also, as they come to the site, it only shows them now with the new version the panels that they've been assigned to, so that they'll see a list of, when they go into that jump to application, they're just going to see a list of panels that they have access to, and they can just go through and start reviewing them. Because this, one thing to note about this and the review process is the panelists are not staff members. These are people that are coming in and donating their time, and they're not computer wizards. They have to be shown things in a way that is not confusing and that they can just do really fast. And otherwise, they're really wasting their time with people who are doing it out of the goodness of their heart. They can go, do you want to talk about the awards? They can go and make awards.
Yeah, so, as I'm sure all of you know, with Drupal, there's many different things like you can customize, and one of the things we can do in the online system is change the workflow status of an application from, let's say, in progress, submitted, all of those things, and now all the way to, let's say, an organization becomes a grantee and gets a grant, you can say award granted. And, this is going to really help us, figure out kind of like notification, being able to track the payment to make sure, let's say if anyone has any issue getting paid, we can be able to look back and say it says it was paid, and figure out that pain point to be how do we make sure we rectify this? So, and this is, as Alex will talk about it a little bit more, but, kind of like a new system to be able to do notification and, templates through the site.
Yeah, we just added the ability to have email templates and then to select a bunch of users that were in the system, and you can say, send an email. In this case, you can see it has the normal Drupal stuff of what do you call them, tokens, so that it can basically work as like a mail merge. So it'll email everybody who, let's say you want to send to these people, you want to send an email that says your application was granted. It'll swap in the different values, send out that email to all the people that you've selected. A lot of this they did not want automated because things happen, emails get sent to the wrong people. They want to make sure that they can control who the emails get sent to. But it basically can work as a drop-in replacement for a CRM for organizations like these who don't have their own staff. This is all done through a professional management organization. The payments were already mentioned. One of the things that we did add for this round is the ability to have fiscal sponsors. So the payment information, so they go and they export a list of who gets paid. It'll have the bank information on it and all that kind of stuff that can be then sent to the bank to facilitate payments. If they had used a fiscal sponsor, it pulls in from that, which is a separate entity managed by the foundation. And then the web forms we already mentioned. There's a special web form that interrupts the user's registration process so that they can get pre-screening information to make sure that person they get a lot of, you can say more about why you want to pre-screen.
Yeah, so this is actually a really exciting feature for us because in the current version, before this launches very soon, if someone registered for a user account, you would just get sort of an automated email that said Corey registered for an account. And then we would create kind of like an email back and forth to be tell me about your organization, and have to, over email exchange, determine kind of their eligibility. This submission form is really going to help because we're going to capture the type of information that we would normally have maybe had to have 4 email exchanges about. So right off the bat, we'll be able to say oh, here's the information we need to determine if they're a good fit for a grant program. So it's going to save us a lot of staff time, and it's really also going to help the applicant user experience.
Yeah, before, for a couple of reasons, dating back to the original system, there was a one-to-one relationship between a user and an organization. And so in order to even register that I wanted to make an organization, they had to register for a user account. This now, basically, before they even get to the point of creating a user account, it's a pre-screening form. So if they accept or reject using those operations, they can just reject them. No user account is created. And it gives them an opportunity to put an email of why they rejected it. And then the other thing that's kind of unique to this versus other application management systems is obviously Drupal. So you can use it as your main website and your CMS. So it has normal CMS features. We just did the CK editor thing in here. So obviously you know what CK editor is. And you can build it to do what you want. There's different views that they have that are specialty, like a list of all past grant winners. But it's just for as opposed to other application management systems, it can be used in the normal ways that Drupal can. And just because we're going really fast here, just to give you some idea of the future, obviously a couple of features that we showed you are literally launching next week. So that's the future, the launch of the new features for the current foundations. very soon after that, I already put, the project page is already up there, but we're going to release the distribution as an open source distribution. You can already create a sample site, but you'll be able to do that on your own like you would with any Drupal distribution. We're hoping to find others that have similar interests, whether that's in grant management or, like I said, things for like, if you're a school and you have fellowships that are annually reoccurring, accepting your fellowships in that way, where you can then integrate in with your student systems. Obviously, Drupal 11 is coming. With Drupal 11, there's a lot of interesting features that we will be able to take advantage of. Recipes, I think, is the most exciting one, whereas right now, we have to come in and build all the new features for the sites. It'll be great to have recipes and the ability to say, oh, you want events on the site. Okay, no problem. There's a recipe for that. We can do that. And the experience builder, right now I showed you the CMS uses the CK editor in order to create pages, but they'll be able to use the experience builder. Other useful recipes like besides events, I know there's like A/B testing, there's accessibility, there's a bunch of recipes that'll become available to users of the system once it's there. And then, for us as an organization, we have to decide whether to turn this into a set of recipes as well, so that you could add potentially, an application process to your current site. That's still we'll still have to manage it because of the way we manage the foundations as a distribution, but it's possible that we might also have some of the features available as recipes. And I'm going to let you go get drinks. Try to do that as quick as possible. We did it in 10 minutes instead of 20. Corey didn't get to say anything. You want to say anything, Corey?
No. Enjoy the drinks.
All right, so now we'll turn it over to the drinking.
Yeah.
Let the fun begin.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for sticking around.